Hey, it's Brian Husar again. How's everybody doing? Today I'm going to do a Blu-ray review of the recently re-released Criterion Collection edition of Spike Lee's 1989 film, Do the Right Thing. I saw this film when it came out in '89. Saw it at Chestnut Station in Chicago. At the time I was interested in directors, and I was big into Martin Scorsese. Little did I know that Scorsese was a mentor to Spike Lee when Spike was at NYU. I was interested in filmmakers that liked to show off the way they move the camera, the jump cuts, the cutting to slow motion. All of a sudden, you got these smooth camera shots, and now you're cutting to handheld cameras. And doing things with the sound design that was kind of abstract, kind of surreal. Now, the great directors of the 40s and the early 50s and even the 30s, they weren't doing that, at least not here in America. But in the 60s, you did have filmmakers coming up that did that. And then in the 70s, your Scorseses, your Coppolas, your Spielbergs, your Brian De Palmas, your William Friedkins, they started to make you aware of the camera more. And Orson Welles did it too. William Wyler did it too. And a bunch of other filmmakers did it. But I was always interested, what's this director's style going to be? I knew of the ending of the film. I knew how controversial it was supposed to be and how over-exaggerated the controversy was at the time. I wanted to see who this Spike Lee person was and how he was going to move his camera. What sort of things is he going to do? And of course I loved it. You know, he's tilting the camera for tension. He's cutting to slow motion when a police car is going down the street. He's breaking the fourth wall by having a montage of racial slurs. You know, I loved it. It was the second time I saw it on VHS in 1991. This was the second VHS tape I ever bought with my own money. And I worked at a video store at the time. I worked at West Coast Video, which at the time was Blockbuster's most stiffest competition. And it was that time that the characters really got to me, where the sense of empathy over everybody in the film came over me because I knew what was going to happen at the end of the film. And these fictitious characters didn't know the result of everything that they were doing throughout the day in this film was going to explode in this racial violence at the end of the film. So I kept telling myself, Sal, put a picture up on the wall. Bugging out, there's a different way of demanding a picture on the wall. You have a point, Sal's got a point. Mookie, you have a son, get home to your son. Pino, shut up. You know, please. There were a lot of different things that just kept going through my mind because I knew what was going to happen at the end of the film, and I wanted these characters to get along and just deal with this hottest day of the summer. But of course, they didn't pay attention to me. It happened anyways. And that's what I'm talking about. With this film, it really created an out-of-body experience for me, especially the second time I saw it, to the point where it's just stayed with me. It's one of Spike Lee's masterpieces. I think Spike Lee has several masterpieces, but I do think that first ride of 6 films culminating with his epic Malcolm X was a good ride. And then after that, sometimes he was up, sometimes he was down, and sometimes a film that you may not have liked the first time you have seen it, you went back to and you recognize the power of it. Controversy that happened at that time has been discussed greatly. I encourage people to read Roger Ebert's great movies column on Do the Right Thing, because he explains it in great detail. I don't want to go into it. But I will say that I'm always amazed at how people have gotten Spike wrong, especially in this film, because I always found him to be very empathetic. But more importantly, just the sheer craftsmanship of this movie to try and create an entire scenario. We're going to focus on one day. It's going to be the hottest day of the year. The colors, the way they decided to use color to convey that hot day of the year, the hottest day of the year. Lawrence of Arabia knew how to create that desert heat. David Lean had it with those wide vistas of the desert. as well as those camera shots, the complicated tracking shots, the zoom shots that are slow, the camera panning away when somebody dips out of the frame and then dips back into the frame, things like that. David Lean and his cinematographer Freddie Young did. Spike Lee and Ernest Dickerson in Do the Right Thing did it by conveying certain colors. They stayed away from blue colors and anything that was a cool color. There's a lot of bright reds in the film, a lot of bright oranges, a lot of bright yellows. There's hardly a blue in the film, unless it might be where the air conditioning unit in an apartment or the pizzeria is. Maybe there'll be some blue light coming in from there. But other than that, you can't escape the heat in this film. Cutting to the cornerman, played by Paul Benjamin, Frankie Faison, and the late, great Robin Harris, in front of this red brick wall, bright red brick wall. You just feel that heat. And to this day, I'm amazed. On a budget of $6.5 million, they chose the block in Bed-Stuy because it had 2 empty lots. So they could build the Korean fruit and vegetable stand, and they could build the pizzeria. Those were 2 physical buildings that they had to make for that block. Of course, they had to tear them down afterwards, and of course, the pizzeria, doesn't survive in the end. Spoiler alert if you've never seen the film. But I would think if you're watching this, you probably have seen the film already. The costume design by Ruth Carter, who finally got an Oscar for Black Panther. Wynn Thomas's production design. I mean, they had to alter certain things in the block, adding the pizzeria and the Korean fruit and vegetable stand, altering a front of an apartment for the We Love radio station, painting 2 murals on the block as well. A budget of $6.5 million. They really did what they could, and it doesn't look like that film cost that low. This film has always stood the test of time for me, and it has withstood the test of time. And it's a film that I really think it still works. I still love watching it. It's a masterpiece. Now, this new Criterion Collection Blu-ray. This is class. I love it. This is actually a building that they painted and they took a photo of specifically for this new cover. And this beautiful painting of one side of the street, the other side of the street. A long essay, as Criterion usually does, as well as Spike Lee's shooting diary, which was originally published in the Making of Do the Right Thing book, which came out around the same time. Spike used to do books of the movies he made at the time. He did one for She's Gotta Have It. He did one for School Days. Did one for Do the Right Thing. Did one for Mo Better Blues. Didn't do one for Jungle Fever. And then he did one for Malcolm X. I basically have all of them because I was a big Spike Lee fan. So how is this transferred? How does this stack up to other versions of this? Like I said, first had this on VHS back in the day. And Criterion issued a Laserdisc of this in the mid-90s. The audio commentary on here is from that particular disc. Ernest Dickerson supervised the transfer at that point. I didn't see it, but in 2001, Criterion issued it on DVD, a 2-disc DVD edition, and Ernest supervised the transfer of that one. And that one, he added an orange tint to a lot of the scenes, a very obvious, prominent orange tint. And then in 2009, Universal finally got the rights back to issue it on disc. They issued the first Blu-ray edition of it. Ernest supposedly supervised that transfer, and he took away the orange tint. But it didn't have the intensity that I knew. Even without the orange tint, which I didn't remember on the VHS, there was the intensity of the heat. Now, this transfer, which was a 4K transfer, Ernest supervised the cinematography, the transfer again, and it looks amazing. It pops where it really needs to pop, and scenes are bright with the sun. It's not so much color timing, but like the brightness of scenes are there, and sometimes there is an orange tint, but also there's details in here that I missed the first time around. The sound is a 5.1 mix that was done for the 2009 Blu-ray, which was supervised by Spike Lee and done by the original sound designer Skip. I'm gonna say his name wrong. Skip Livesey or Livesey. He did Scorsese's films for a while, and he's worked a lot with the Coen brothers now and Alfonso Cuarón. But the 5.1, it was always a good mix, that 5.1. So, Do the Right Thing, Criterion Collection Edition, new 4K remaster. You gotta have this in your set if you are a film fanatic and if you are a Spike Lee fan, and if you just want a good film that makes you think and can draw good emotion from you. That's my take. And thank you very much. Be well, take care of yourselves, be safe, and I'll talk to you soon.